Black Spikes is definitely coming in, I would say, as the favorite. They've won 2 out of the last 3 seasons. 9th Sanguine Tigers returned last season, actually, because what happened was, so we had Sanguine Tigers and we had 9th, that I forgot the 9th name right now, sorry. And they combined last season and they were in the EU Division B. They did not win that division. However, they placed well enough that they got promoted up into Division A. So this is their first time in Division A since back when STS was competing in it several seasons ago. So Black Spikes definitely has some more experience, more matches, but I know 9thSTS has been doing a lot of scrimming lately, so I expect good things from them. But Black Spikes is no easy team. Now, Black Spikes is obviously the normal people that you're used to seeing with the BSMC tags, some people without the BSMC tags as well, as you'll probably see Coburn. He played a lot of their matches last season. I'm guessing he's going to be playing them this season. I don't think we'll have Kathy this season because he'll be with House of Lords EU, so that'll be one player they'll definitely be missing. Now, from the 9thSTS side, I haven't confirmed this, but from what I know in the past, Doyle is one of their major drop callers, so he'll probably be the caller tonight. So we're going to want to watch him, see where he's positioned, because where he's positioned is probably around the area that he expects his team to be. Now, being that this is a light drop, usually it ends up in a brawl. However, the teams are not forced to brawl right away if they don't want to. There are different ways to play it. They could try to play a little range, poke some damage, make the other team have to react to their position as opposed to just diving to your opponent's position. So I'm hoping that these teams bring a little bit of range. I'm hoping maybe just 1, maybe 2 mechs at most, but a little bit of range to try to pull these teams out, to make them be in a position they don't want to be in, to engage in a spot they don't want to be. And also it can be an advantage because in your brawl mechs can go in when you're ready as a team, as opposed to just running across the map and then colliding into a scrum. However, as soon as these two teams engage, I expect a nasty furball, and we'll see if we can keep up with them, keep up on the kills, keep up on the action. Now, this is skirmish. First drop is skirmish as opposed to drops 3, 4, 5, which will be conquest. Now, this drop, we shouldn't have any draw issues, but when we get into the second drop, we'll talk about some of those possibilities, because second drop's going to be on Viridian Bog. And 9thSTS is all in the lobby, just waiting on 2 more people from Black Spikes, and we will get going. As I was mentioning, that I hope to see a little bit of range, so when we first get in there, we're going to take a look, see if we see some Blackjack 1Xs, maybe an Enforcer, maybe even the various Nova builds or a Stormcrow build. Now, as I mentioned, no streaks, so we don't have to worry about those streak crows ending lights days fast. Instead, we'll just probably see a lot of SRMs. The question always is, how many SRMs? Do you go all SRMs? You can. You could go two Oxides and 2 Hugins if you wanted to for your lights. There's a lot of, you have a lot of flexibility there. But if you just SRM, sometimes you end up having problems taking down finishing mechs, right? Because the SRM splash around, maybe aren't so precise, and if you just add some small pulse in there and take them down quickly, that is definitely in your favor. As sometimes SRMs, you'll see 3 people shooting SRMs trying to take down a mech, especially if they're going CT, and it takes a long time for that mech to actually drop. But if you add some direct fire there, once sections are open, direct fire gets in there, finishes it off. So I'm expecting teams maybe to do 2 SRM lights and then 2 small pulse lights. maybe medium pulse if they take a fire starter, if they prefer that mech. Myself, right now, the way the game is being played, I prefer a small pulse. I just happen to like the Jetter 2C. I like to play it. Okay, we got all players in the lobby, so this should be kicking off in just a moment. This is going to be the first match of, I believe, of EU Division A. I haven't totally checked the results that have been coming through, but I believe this will be the first match, and here we go. So after 3 months of inaction, largely from teams other than scrimming and just normal playing, we are kicking off MRBC Season 7. And once again, my controller decides it's not going to work. So looking at the teams, we see a Wolverine 6R, probably a Brawl there, Shadowcat, or Shadowhawk, sorry, Spider 5K, Griffin 2Ns from Black Spikes. As you see, they're moving around the perimeter right now. And then on the other team for 9thSTS, a Hunchback 4 piece, they got a little bit probably range. That could be small pulses as well. General Oxide, some Storm Crows, Firestarter. Just one Oxide for them, and just one Oxide for Black Spikes. Interesting choice. Black Spikes went with the Griffin 2Ns with that ECM SRM for their double chassis, whereas the other team went with the Storm Crows. Now Xander is running a large pulse for machine gun. He's trying to do a little bit early poke here. I'm curious about this mech over here. Can I do that? So we'll just switch over here, small pulse Storm Crow. Now the teams are actually playing a pretty standoff match. That's not totally unexpected. They just did not want to rush towards Theta, hoping perhaps they're just hoping the other team would rush towards Theta, since teams are so used to others doing that. Instead, they are sitting back and just waiting. This is actually probably some of the longest I've seen this first drop go without any action on Canyon. But this is an interesting position now. So STS is lining up on this base, on this ramp, and they are hoping that Black Spikes is going to come over past Theta, and then they'll push up right behind them, engaging right here into their backs while their other mechs are picking apart on the other side. It's a nice position. The only problem is if it gets scouted. If this spider from Xander can see it, then he might be able to. Let's actually get his action here, because it's going to come down a lot whether he can see what is going to happen here. Because if he picks that out, the rest of his team then knows where they're at, and they can actually drop on the right side, get right in their backs, and probably get the early first kill. Alright, so Black Spikes is starting to move a little bit more. They got their Firestarter A scouting around, and then we also have this Jenner 2. So Proton has now scouted this position out. This position is no longer going to be that great for them. They're going to have to move from there. Otherwise, Black Spikes should be able to exploit that. And Proton is scouting with these SRMs. It's actually a decent scout because it can pretty much take on any other light 1v1. So if he gets jumped by one, he'll be alright. But it looks like 9thSTS is decided to move from their position, which, as I mentioned, they do not want to stay here anymore. So their mechs that were sitting back, trying to get that pincher set up, has decided to move. They're all going towards Theta now. Now they can pick the Xander here with the spider with that large pulse. They're not going to want to sit here for too long. Already 92% on the one Storm Crow. Probably, spread out, not really important damage. But now they are going to push. This is the time to push. Come across. You got a light spread out on either wings. Yeah, he's got to get through, but he can't be the first to die. Storm Crow. Arab is on a duck down. He's going to want to get out of the fight for a moment so the rest of his players can push in. And now we get in the scrum. And the first target for... They're still on skate knock on the Griffin 2N down to 62%. And but that first Storm Crow does go down. And we got a 1-all game. Now it looks like they're on the 4P. Black Spikes is on the 4P, whereas on the Wolverine side for 9thSTS. But right now their position's pretty good. This is actually a decent scrum because they're both, it's 2-2, but they're all kind of together. It looks like they're generally shooting the same targets. 40%, 70% is pretty good, whereas the other team got 2 targets. So pretty much they're splitting on 2 targets. Not not a bad thing to do. So we got a 4-4 game. This is going really closely. All percentages are pretty close, so they can get this Griffin 2N down, which they do. It is now in favor of 9thSTS, 4-3, but they have to deal with the lights here, Firestarter, an Oxide, and a Spider. Get into this Oxide, because if he can live, he can do a lot of lithium suicides. So now it is 2-3 in favor of 9thSTS, and they think taking down this Cheetah's legs here. Slim can get this kill. That's going to help them out a lot, and he does take that down. See if he can survive a little bit more. There is a fresh Firestarter he's going to have to deal with. He's got to get a good SRM shot here to help out his team if they're going to come back from behind here, but they do take him down, and now we are down to just a large pulse laser on this Spider. He unfortunately runs out of machine gun ammo, so he's not going to be able to get all those crits here late in the game. So this definitely should go in favor of 9thSTS. Very interesting. They went with a generosity with SRM 6. Look at that. 6 SRM 6s. That is an insane build. I am curious what kind of engine he's running. He is only, so you're going 134. That's a really interesting build. I haven't seen people take this build before. Now he's got, you know, obviously one shot rear, so he's got to make sure that he faces CT. So what has to happen is Kremoa has to be scouting this position out constantly. He can't allow the Spider to get some distance, but he is pretty fresh and can engage a Spider at any point. That right leg should come off after about 2 more shots if he can just give a square on. And now he is Stimrog's in the fight with his SRMs, and he should have no problem ripping down these legs at the end of this fight. Just don't get in Stimrog's way, because we don't need any team kills. And now every kill does matter, so if he can you can possibly get a kill, great, but no. Xander does go down, and the first drop goes to 9thSTS. Well played by them. They brought the fight in the end. They were trying to hide out there, trying to draw Black Spikes into a trap. Black Spikes didn't fall for it. They scouted it out, and then 9thSTS just pushed forward. And man, the kills are going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That was a really intense, hot fight, really closely played. Well done by both teams. You see those early mechs that got target, escape knock initializer for Black Spikes, and then the Arkellis and Gasarius for the Storm Crow. They're on for 9thSTS. Both those mechs went down pretty quick for both teams, but very minimum damage. Well done by those teams and actually focused firing. But all's not lost for Black Spikes. I mean, obviously 4 more drops to go, but even more importantly, they got 6 kills. 6 kills is pretty good points. It's not a huge difference. In the end, it shouldn't be a huge difference between these two teams for that drop. So that's one of the things that's really important on MRBC. Every kill matters. You cannot just, you know, win a drop here or there, you know, close game kills, and then when you lose drops, lose them bad. If you're going to lose a drop, you got to lose it well. You got to get as many kills as possible, because when it comes down to the end of the season, those kills can be the difference between who wins and loses, or who gets first and second. Yeah, I just saw how Bando saying EU plays so different from NA. They absolutely do. We were watching, or I mean, I play with ASU, right? So that, and I play with SJR for NA. And when back in the past, it was really, really, really different. One of the things that you would see was different kind of weapons, different kinds of builds, but they were definitely much closer fights. They were definitely more of a punchy fight, whereas NA at that time was playing a much more ranged game. I remember back when Black Spikes was taking spiders and all kinds of things. It was really, really strange how it was being played when you would switch from one style to the other, and I couldn't understand why. Part of it was the servers. We didn't have EU servers back then, so they had more lag. Not so much of an issue anymore. So now I think both sides are generally playing a little bit more similar. A lot of players are mixing between NA and EU, so there's more communication, there's more sharing of tactics and styles. That being said, I think that one thing I have seen is that when it comes to draws, EU is much more willing to fight a draw style. They're much more willing to sit back and take a tactic that is kind of a rock paper scissors style, where they say, yeah, you know, if we're rock and they're paper, we're not going to engage. Whereas I find most NA teams are trying to stay away from the RPS, and they're trying to go directly into a style that can work against whatever they're facing. Well, while they get ready for Viridian Bog, let's just talk a couple of things here. This is one where I worry about a draw. There's a lot of positions that you can be high up on hills. There's positions where you can be down in the water. If you're ranged, the other one's brawl, you have to really kind of decide, are you going to try to push into that? Because that's dangerous. That's really dangerous to be pushing around on this map, especially in the blind situations, possibly with ECM. And I think this is probably going to have a few draws in MRBC for week 1. I think some teams are going to be a little too tentative at first. They're going to go, if they're going like a range strat and the other team, you just got to have SRMs, you're not going to move. And then if the SRMs aren't going to move, then you're just going to have a draw. However, the draw rules are different for MRBC this season. If you go on and win that match, and you split the first, you won the first drop, you draw the second. If you go on and win the overall match in numbers of drops, you win 2 more drops, then you get those draws in favor of you, and I believe it's 8-0 wins. So drawing is an option now. It's an option without a penalty. The only penalty is if you lose the match later, you're probably better off just going and engaging and getting a few kills. So while I'm waiting on the next drop, shouldn't hopefully be too long here, talk a little bit again on what we saw from the teams. Now, Interior Scorpions, they put some mechs right here, overlook, and then they had some mechs right here on the ramp. Whereas we saw with Black Spikes, they had mechs more along this area. They had a spider scouting out here, and now 9thSTS was hoping, they were hoping that Black Spikes would just push here, and then they would be able to take their mechs, push in the back here with overlook there. Been a great tactic. It would have worked great if Black Spikes had played a really aggressive strat. Unfortunately for them, Proton came over here. He saw it. At that point, 9thSTS recognized, so they pushed up those mechs. They realized that this spot was no longer going to be very good because all Black Spikes would have to do is drop down here and come over here, and they would have had a nice little advantage if they could have snuck those in there. So it would have been a little too risky to stay there. If you're running a trap in your trap scene, you got to change. So 9thSTS got up here, and they just decided they're going to push. Now, I was talking about that Stormcrow. Stormcrow is being targeted right away. One of the things he could have done is drop down here, wait for the rest of his teammates to get engaged, and then come back into the fight. He did kind of stay with the fight. He dropped back a little bit in the line, which is good. So it made it a little bit harder for Black Spikes to focus on him. But he did go down first. If he could have possibly maybe made them switch targets, that might have been even more favorable for his team. That being said, they did get on a target themselves, 9thSTS. They focused that first mech down, and they got the second mech down. The teams are going 2-2, 3-3, 4-4, basically. And then we saw 9thSTS get the advantage towards the end. I don't, it's hard to say why they won that fight. It might have just come down to a little bit better focus firing, because positionally, I would say both teams are pretty equal. The only disadvantage that you would have had was the spider. It can do really good that damage, but to get in this type of fight, it's not optimal there, other than has those machine guns for some damage. And Proton, well, he could have jumped in at any time, so I don't think his speed would have been too much of an issue. One thing I was I was kind of surprised about was Stimrog's mech choice with the 6 SRM6 Jenner 2C. He was going about 139, I think, kph, so it's a build, check that out, see if it's something that you like. It's not one that you tend to see. A lot of people do that, the SRM4s. And we also saw 9thSTS had those small pulse Stormcrows, right? So that was their choice on how they were going to go after that, whereas the other team was really focused around the Griffin 2 ends. So we got 9thSTS is in the server for drop number 2, and we are waiting on Black Spikes. As mentioned, it will be skirmish as well. Yeah, that's the thing about the scrums. I mean, when you're fighting that close, it really comes down to who focus fires best, who gets the kill, who gets legs down. I mean, they're all going legs, so it's like who can get those legs down, who can get those kills and just get ahead in the fight. On a sustained fight, though, one of the things that can really start changing is who has the heat advantage. I didn't see anybody taking flamers. That's a little bit surprising. I would have expected a little bit more flamers just to try to overheat them on Canyon. But it's, you know, if you don't want to use them, you don't have to use them. I'm gonna try to get replays going. I have my technique that I was gonna try, but I'm using. I just switched over to using XSplit, so I'm trying to figure it all out. But I have a way I'm gonna try to do it. I just gotta actually remember to do it. I gotta remember to set up the recording so I get the split files. And if I don't capture it, I'll just replay from Twitch, so you'll be able to see the last 5 minutes of a fight. If you're getting any buffering, you shouldn't be. I'm using a pretty low bit rate. I only do 2300, I think it is. Maybe it's even 2200. One of the features XSplit has is it has this auto detect, you know, for optimization. I did change some settings away from that. I'm trying to use a higher resolution, which seems to be good as long as I don't go into a really fast mix. So we're getting ready for drop number 2 between Black Spikes and 9th Tigers. 9th Tigers taking the first drop in a close 8-6 contest. All Black Spikes players are now in the lobby. They're just organizing their lances, and we will get going. Now the second drop, what we are looking here is 2 lights, 4 mediums, 2 heavies. This is when teams really have to consider what that duplicate's going to be. Again, if you really like the Oxide, maybe you go 2 Oxides. Maybe you go an Oxide and add some ECM in with the Cheetah for a little bit more scout. Your heavies could be 2 Black Knights if you really like those. Otherwise, you're probably going to split those up and maybe have your duplicates in your mediums. You saw both teams took duplicates in their mediums last time. Perhaps they'll continue that. And then maybe able to go with an Ebon Jaguar or a Timberwolf, either lasers or maybe a little bit of Gauss, maybe a Hellbringer for even more ECM if you like that. Also, if you just want to play another Black Knight, Ishimaki, there is the Grasshopper. But if you're going to go Brawl, that's other things, because Clan really is superior when it comes to the Brawls. So they might, you know, if you're going to go heavies there, maybe go with Timberwolf. But SRMs, there's always a Summoner. That's pretty much it. But okay, we're going to get started with drop number 2. Alright, so Black Spikes, drop number 2, they're going with the Timberwolf and a Black Knight with a Shadow Cat. Interesting choice with the Hunchback 2C, a Trebuchet 5J. They went with the double Hunchback 2Cs, and a Jenner Oxide and a Jenner 2C. Whereas 9thSTS has Hunchback 4P. Once again, a Stormcrow, Jenner 2C, a Timberwolf, another Hunchback, and they went with the Ebon Jag as a second heavy. So we got a medium pulse. We got a Brawl, Ebon Jaguar, We're just going to cycle through some mechs here on the initial part as we got time. Small pulse. So we are definitely a laser type brawl from 9thSTS. Now let's look at where the teams are moving here. Black Spikes is in the blue, and they are sitting back up on these hills. We got a Timberwolf, a Xander up there. We got a Shadowcat, probably 2 large pulse. And then you got their SRMs a little bit more forward. Nice position to screen off or intercept any types of push. Whereas 9thSTS is pushing up to this lower hill, taking up there with their SRMs and small lasers. But they're going to get shot initially. They do take down a UAV. Good choice before any kind of a push. But now Arab is poking out left and takes 9% damage. Not exactly what he should have been doing. He should have waited for those lights to find that the fact that Black Spikes is up here. And they are all kind of rotating over to the right at this point because they're going to expect that D4 push. When it comes to Viridian, it's kind of debated a little bit which side is the advantage. Most people would say 9thSTS has the advantage because they have the stair sides of the hills, but the fact that Black Spikes is sitting here on some nice hills, some people actually, they really like this position, especially on skirmish, if they think the team is actually going to push against them. If 9thSTS tries to push a D4, I don't like their opportunities there. I don't think it would be a very good choice.